And good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. And thank you to our guests for joining us bright and early this Friday morning. I know it's early for you guys, so thank you so much. I am very honored to introduce today's guest speakers. So with the Olympic Peninsula Community Clinic's Rediscovery program, we have Amy Miller, who is the Rediscovery Community Change Agent and Program Director. We have Scott Brandon, who is the Executive Director, and Viola Ware, who's the Rediscovery Community Change Agent as well. So a brief introduction to Rediscovery, and Amy will dive into this afterwards, but Rediscovery is a response and outreach and case management team that responds to behavioral health crises in the field with law enforcement. They conduct encampment outreach in the woods, perform home visits with the community paramedics, and links individuals to available and appropriate services when released from emergency room and or jails. They reduce costs to the community by reducing the unnecessary use of emergency services, by bringing services to where they are needed, when they are needed, by providing street and shelter medical clinics. They are a mobile response team that includes specially trained de-escalators, medical professionals, psychiatric providers, and individuals with the treasure of lived experience and recovery. The Rediscovery program is housed with the Olympic Peninsula Community Clinic, otherwise known as OPCC, and otherwise known as the Free Clinic here on the peninsula. And they've been providing services to our communities for since 2001, so over 20 years. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Amy Miller. So if you want to take it away. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Karen. That was a really nice introduction. I think I wrote it myself.
Nicely done. Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning. And I'm going to apologize first that I have not seen this time of morning in a very long time. So I'm going to do my best. And I do have a short slide deck if I'm able to share my screen. And I think I can. Guys, let me know if you can see this now.
Perfect.
Okay. So I won't bore you with slides, but I do, this does sort of help me stay on track. So I'm going to run through some of this, and then I will ask my colleagues to share some details about their work and the folks that we work with. So hopefully you got all of that tongue twister, which may have been just one sentence. I'm not even sure. I apologize, Carmen. But what we do is we are out in the world. We go out and meet people, and generally speaking, most of the people that we meet are folks that are unseen by a lot of other people. But by that we mean, it is the folks that kind of get stepped over. It is the folks that get sort of, we avoid eye contact, and they're really the unseen group of Port Angeles. And so we go out and we find them, and we persistently make them like us. And so what's unique about us is that we offer the holistic view of a person, and we are able to bring services into the place where they're at, quite literally. So sometimes we're bringing medical care into a tent. Sometimes we are bringing psychiatric consultation via tablet at a hospital room. And so we have really built up this amazing team that just gets stuff done, which is, I think, our new motto, although we're workshopping it. And so the thing that we do probably the best, maybe there's so many things, is that we build relationships. We know these people, they know us, and we become trusted in that world, so that we can help folks reach their goals. A lot of folks that we work with have been, for lack of a better word, at 7 a.m. screwed over by other service providers. and they have some trust issues. And so building those relationships and really just helping people to feel like they can start again and try again and get a different result. So a little history, and this is where I'm going to call on my boss, mostly because he's just been around forever. But sorry, Scott. But we have had a lot of help along the way to get to where we are today. And hopefully, Scott, I know he had a late night also, but hopefully he'll be able to take you on that very quick journey of where the free clinic started, how Rediscovery got involved, and where we are now. And where we are now is being shared across the state and sometimes into other states as best practice. And we are training other cities to do what we do. So Scott, I can't see you, but
Sure, thanks, Amy.
Okay.
I'm here, and I need to be careful because Kathy can probably tell much of this story better than I can. So Kathy, feel free to jump in and correct me if you need to. As Carmen mentioned before, this is our 20th year. The Olympic Peninsula Community Clinic originally started out in the basement of St. Andrews when Dr. Ed Hopfner and his wife Phyllis started providing care one evening a week on a walk-in basis. And it very quickly grew because of the need in the community and the generosity of the Hopfners. And then he was quickly joined by other providers who built this one evening a week medical care clinic into what we have today. A year later, the process was started to become a nonprofit. And from that basement beginning, the Volunteers in Medicine, or VMO clinic, emerged. In 2005, they were able to move into a little yellow house that kind of became iconic and became a part of our logo. And we resided there until OMC needed that space for what is now their new clinic building on the corner of Race and Georgiana. So at that point, we moved over into a larger clinic building just a block down the street. That allowed us to expand from what had been medical and behavioral health care to add dental care. And in our current facility, we now have 5 medical exam rooms and 5 dental operatories. But with any growing and building program, we have space concerns. And we have right now an office that's being shared by about 7 people to run our Rediscovery program. And that office really ought to be used to be seeing patients instead. We were very fortunate to be able to get a Washington Department of Commerce grant to build a new administrative annex. We are nearly complete in our construction. That annex is going to have 6 new offices, a pharmacy room, and an extensive storage room. And it'll also open up the ability to provide laundry services. So along with that, as Amy mentioned, our program has also grown and evolved. After starting in 2016 with then Sergeant Vieta and Viola doing the housing beat, Rediscovery was born a year later in 2017. And like Amy mentioned, this has become a model program across the state. She mentioned I had a late night last night. I was down in Paulsbo at one of our satellite units. Last year, Kitsap County reached out to us, said, we want your program, and we offered to consult with them, and they said, no, we want your program. And so now we have a program in Clallam County. We have another program in Kitsap County, and that is growing as well. And really, Amy won't say this, but I will. This is all due to her vision and leadership, and we just wouldn't be who we are or where we are without her guidance, her energy, and that really makes Rediscovery what it is. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Amy.
Well, thanks. Thank you for the history. I think it's important just to know sort of where we came from and where we're heading. We have worked with other Rotary groups in the past as well, so we are honored to be here so that we can also rope you guys in. And so this was one of the projects from Port Angeles Dune Rotary last year. And we just finally reorganized our storeroom from that shopping spree. So that was pretty awesome. But those kinds of things, we were able to make hygiene bags. And that was along with our PAPD partners. And we were able to keep them in the patrol cars and came in handy for them to be able to have in their cars. The other thing that we do is outreach events. We have so far done an annual Cocoa Wagon run before the holidays. So you might have seen us out there. I enjoy wearing really goofy hats. We do picnics and barbecues and trash pickups. And we used to just do some picnics in the park. And it sort of started to grow. The last summer, we were able to put together, we called it a week of shenanigans. And one of the most successful days that we had was my loving and dedicated husband built us a graffiti wall. And we were able to, between him and I, plant it in front of where our new building is. And we had spray paint all over the place. And we invited folks to come in. And I think this was from the same day here down at the end. We had hot dogs and chips and sodas and waters and stuff. And so we had a bunch of folks come down. I think our youngest was maybe 9 and our oldest was probably 82. So everybody participated. They had a really great time. And it was standing until we started construction. So whatever we did to plant it was brilliant. I'm going to leave this slide up and invite Viola if she's awake. She starts early. She's awake. To talk about some of the work that she's done in the world. Viola's this is Viola's passion. You can tell, and you'll see that when she shares her story. And we were lucky enough to bring her back. So she, as you noticed in the history lesson, that she was a big part of getting this town to understand that going out into the world was a big deal. And that it changed the way that we were able to provide services. And she went off and did other big and great things. And we were able to lure her back a little over a year ago. And she's pure magic. She is amazing. She is now our case management coordinator. So she's running the case management department now. And I asked her to join us today specifically to talk about the work that she does and to share some of the stories so that you get an idea of what it's really like with the folks that we work with. So Vi, if you would, please.
Thank you. So just quickly about me, I come from a background, I started in community corrections when I was just 20 years old. I worked for DOC as well as Bureau of Prisons as a federal sanctions center corrections counselor. And I did that for about just a little over 10 years. And then I also now can say that I have equivalent time working with unsheltered folks. And that's families, youth, individuals. And this job is a perfect marriage of those. of all of that experience. And I love what I do right now because when I go out, the program and the partnerships that Amy has built has allowed me to sort of bring the power of the community with me. So when I go out, the partnerships that I have is housing, I have medical, I have partnerships with domestic violence agencies, I have, you know, partnerships with the food bank, with DSHS. I have basically any resource that anybody could possibly want or need. I show up and say, okay, what is it you need? You know what you need? Let's help you get there. And I can't, it's so empowering to come to somebody with that. Every other week, I go out with our operations manager, who is also a medical assistant, and we get up and we get out there at about 6:30 in the morning is when we start. And we go out to the campsites and any place that we know somebody who may be out and sleeping outside, and offer medical assistance. And just the fact that there is somebody present with some medical care actually opens up really big conversations, whereas sometimes they may not be willing to talk. We recently talked to somebody who told us that they were denied inhalers at their medical clinic because they had used 2 in 4 months. And because the fear was they were selling them for drugs. So straight albuterol, I guess, has a street value that we were unaware of. So we were able to do some work with our doctor, our volunteer doctor, who's amazing work at the clinics, and connect them with some inhalers so that they could breathe, because being outside is not the same, does not take the same toll as somebody who does live housed. You're moving around a lot and you're getting moved from place to place quite often, either by community members or by law enforcement. So you're very active. And we also found out was they had very significant health problems that they needed to come into the clinic for. So we were able to make those connections for them. The other piece is that every other week I have somebody from the Housing Resource Center that comes out with me, and anybody who is not engaged or has lost faith in the system, I take a Housing Resource Center partner directly to, whether it's calling them and finding out where they're at and going to their campsites, or meeting them at the shelters. That's where we go. And then I also join Wednesday nights is our late night. I join our medical assistant and our volunteer doctor at shelter clinics. And that's where we go, and we work until 11:30, sometimes midnight, offering medical care to folks at our emergency shelters. And that's our temporary COVID shelter and our overnight shelter. And that's where anybody who I haven't seen, I'll see. And I love going there because for me, it's essentially just loving on people and offering the care that they normally won't be engaged in. And that's a lot of wound care and a lot of, folks ready to go to hospitals, or either because of how they feel they're being treated, their needs are dismissed, or they're reticent to even ask for help because they feel like they're asking for too much. And so what tends to happen is the doctor will be seeing somebody and he'll poke his head around the corner and he crooks a finger at me and says, "Come here," and tells me, "Hey, Tag, you're it." And it's because somebody either needs housing or they need resources. And just recently, in fact, he pulled me in to talk to somebody, and I noticed the gentleman, he's a cancer patient, and I noticed he had dog tags. And so I said to him, "Hey, if you don't mind my asking, are you a veteran?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Well, are you engaged with the VA?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Oh." And I'm in the process of getting him, I was able to get his DD-214, and we're in the process of talking with Olivia Reiber and getting him connected with the VA because he hasn't wanted to ask for help. And now he's living in a vehicle, trying to get closer to his medical care and realizing he's in the position that he does need help. And so I've been engaging with him almost every other day and coordinating with the shelter and making sure that he has a safe place to be, because his frustration level and his anxiety is to the point where he's just on the brink. And just having that contact with somebody that can guide him through all these different processes is keeping him engaged and keeping him on an even keel right now, and able to, and able to remain stable enough that he can rest and take care of his dog and feed himself and get gas and get to his medical care, without falling into a panic attack and going into emergency services at this point. And then hopefully we can get him into housing that's closer, instead of having to travel to Silverdale, which is where he has to go right now. We're hoping to expand our housing search for him and maybe get him housing in Silverdale where he can get directly to his medical care, but also do it through the VA where he'll have more appropriate care and more appropriate services. So that's a lot of what it looks like. It's on top of the fact that I have an entire team. Amy has put together a wonderful team of folks that if I don't have the knowledge, I have other people that do, and other people that have the experience that I can tap into and pull in. And we all lean on each other and work together. I work through Saturday. I have somebody else that comes in on Sunday. So there's a lot of information exchange that happens. There's always somebody available to support our community. So I love the work.
Sorry, guys, I keep getting disconnected. I hope it's not totally screwing with the presentation.
I don't see it any longer. If you're sharing your screen, maybe you could just share. I think you had some data details. If you just want to share some data with us.
Yeah, if it's okay, I'm just going to not share. I don't know if that's what's kind of pulling some of the energy over here. But yes, we have had over the 2020 year, we have worked with just under 500 distinct individuals, 472 unduplicated individuals over that year. 242 of those individuals received case management services. And I'd like to just point out that means they worked with Viola. So Viola herself case managed 242 individuals. So we are, super grateful to Scott in finding us the funding sources that we're able to tap into right now so that we can grow those programs and Viola can take a nap. We've also, just as a snapshot of the people we are working with, out of those 472 individuals, 268 of those individuals reported housing instability, so homeless or at risk of being homeless. So that is definitely, the larger portion of the folks that we engage with. We talk about referrals and linkages. Another thing that we do very differently than other programs that report to be sort of the resource linkages or navigators is that we make referrals and then we do what we call a warm connection. So we don't just provide information to people about where they can get those needs met. We bring them there or we bring those resources to them. And we call that a linkage. So in 2020, we made 883 referrals, and that could be to housing, medical, substance use treatment, mental health treatment, all sorts of stuff. So 883 referrals, and out of that, we had about a 52% success rate in linking them to those actual services. And people who aren't in our world may hear over 50% and be like, well, that's not 90%. And while that is true, it is also well above the standard percentage for the industry. So that warm connection is super important to the engagement and ongoing resources. I threw in some additional stories, but I don't know how much time we have. Another big partner that we work with is our community paramedicine program. And that program had started in 2019. We immediately engaged, just knowing that there, we are going to be overlapping and sharing of resources. And that worked out for both of us, because now the community paramedicine program has 3 paramedics. We are also growing, and so we all spend time with each other. So the community paramedics each gets one of us to ride with 1 day a week. We get one of them, and we share our work. And so it's pretty amazing, the stuff that happens out there. Carmen, do you want me to stop for some questions?
Yeah, let's take a few moments for questions, and then we'll chat about the graffiti garden project. So does anyone have questions for the Rediscovery team?
I do. This is Laurel here. I had a conversation recently with a friend who, based on a quote in a news article, tried to convince me that the majority of homeless people prefer that lifestyle. And from what I'm hearing and seeing on my own, I couldn't believe my ears. So I would like you, Amy, if you would talk to us about that issue in the community, that attitude, and what's a good way conversationally to counter it.
I actually heard a really interesting way that it was put to me early on. I was following a group of working homeless in Seattle. And Bill Block, the project manager of Housing First in Seattle, who specifically knew a lot of people who were living unsheltered, put it in a very succinct way. And he said that people, as he understood it, people often choose the situation that they feel best suits their needs at that time. And when we see people who are choosing to be outside and vulnerable to violence and vulnerable to the weather, rather than considering what they're choosing, maybe we should be considering what they're not choosing.
Whoa.
And if I could tag on to that, brilliantly said, quote is, locally, what they are not choosing is sometimes co-ed sleeping facilities, low barrier shelters can also, while they're open for everybody to get in from the elements, they also present some issues because of that. And so folks that may have triggering events in their life, they want to avoid being triggered, and they sometimes get better sleep elsewhere. So I think we could go on. We could go on all day, Vi and I, about this, but Laurel, I appreciate that that was something that kind of struck you as like up for discussion. And, even if somebody in the world tells us, no, I'm good, this is the way I want to live, once we really start engaging with them and working on that, okay, well then how do we keep you fed and warm and alive? From my experience, 0 people choose that lifestyle. 0 people want, they don't give up, their home and their family and say, I'm going to live on the street. That has never happened. Even the folks that self-identify as transient.
Well, when I was in this conversation, of course, as always happens with me, I think of a number of things to say after the conversation is over. And it did strike me that it was massively uncompassionate and unthinking, and especially coming from that person. And it occurred to me that sometimes people tell stories like this to themselves so they don't have to either take any responsibility for their fellow humans or avoid the pain that comes with feeling somebody else's hurt. And, you know, I admire all of you for just stepping up and addressing that, not only in the community, but in yourselves. I think it's a great example.
Thank you.
Quick question. Well, it's not there's never a quick question, but with all the work you've done, what do you feel is the greatest need at this particular point in time? I see addressing housing and actually health needs, but where do you go from here?
I bet you we have different answers. So I'll go real quick. My answer to that is crisis stabilization. We need some safe temporary solutions while we figure out the long-term solutions for this. So what I mean by that is a place for people to actually go physically, their personhood, to a place that is safe and secure, that can address the reasons they are in the situation that they are. So if that is a safe campsite, if that is a safe parking area, if that is a building that has behavioral health professionals ready to detox somebody, that is, in my experience, if we had that, we could move mountains. What do you think?
That's the same answer. I was going to start with, let's say, a detox. Let's say, yep. Most of the trauma that happens with the folks that we work with is the fact that they can't stop and rest. It feels like often to them, they do not have the right to rest.
Well said. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. These are great questions, great conversations. So thank you. Thank you. Just for the sake of time, if it's okay, I'd like to chat about the graffiti garden now, our project. Awesome. I'm going to share my screen here. So I pull this up. Can you guys see that okay? Great. Thank you, Kathy. All right. So just a quick introduction to this. So this is going to be our first project of this new year for Rotary. Our focus is on mental health. So we chose to partner with Olympic Peninsula Community Clinic to create a graffiti garden. So last year, OPCC, as Amy mentioned, they had a week of shenanigans and they created a graffiti wall. So this consisted of one wall and an open field, and clients and community members checked out art kits that contained spray paints and paints, and people shared their sober dates and used the wall as a method of art therapy. And Kayla, the receptionist, shared with me that people would come in when they're processing something difficult and go to the wall and just like work through it, and just they're on the verge of crisis, and it was just a really therapeutic way of expression for them. And so this year, our sights are set to expand this healing space and install 2 picnic tables, 4 graffiti walls, and beautify the area by creating a graffiti garden. So OPCC can use this space to meet clients where they are. Scott shared with me that sometimes people show up with all they have, you know, and they don't want to go inside and they want to stay outside. So this allows the Rediscovery team to meet them where they are and head outside in this healing space. So they have a space to gather and enjoy. And I read online that some graffiti walls or gardens in some cities have been known to lower vandalism in town, as it gives artists a canvas and a place to visit, and knowing that, you know, I have this space, this safe space that I can go and express myself. Oh, there we go. And so this is really exciting. So Scott reached out to Norm and said, hey, Norm, you got some experience in building materials and building plans. Why don't you help us come up with a plan for the picnic table and the wall? And so Norm, being the amazing and creative guy that he is, said, hey, I have some cedar planks on my property. Why don't we go ahead and use those for the tabletop and the benches? So here's a picture of Norm. So he designed the picnic layout and graffiti walls. And so Norma, I said I would let you talk about this. So do you want to chime in and talk about where you got your ideas and how you went about it?
Okay, well, sure. First, thanks to both you, Carmen, and Scott for bringing the idea forward and bringing it into reality. As we were talking about what materials we needed for all of this, it came to my mind that I had some cedar logs from trees that I'd cut down in the yard that were just laying there doing nothing. And I could probably turn them into planks to help build the tables. So I borrowed an Alaska's chainsaw mill. You can see that's being assembled there, put together. And then Scott came up and together we sawed up one log, and subsequently I sawed up another one just to make sure we have enough material. So we'll be using these boards. They'll be manufactured a little bit more than what they are in their raw form right now, but not a lot. Carmen actually said, I love the design or the free flowing. So we're going to see how much of that we can utilize as a at least on tabletops, and retain the character of those boards as much as possible. So in addition to that, we got materials sold to us and a significant discount and donation from Heart Nagels. So I have all the materials actually at my house. We got plywood from the Chamber of Commerce, and it's all ready to go. Airport Garden is going to provide some landscaping once we get into the planting season, because this project will be doing it on August 14th, I believe. And so that's not exactly planting season. So we'll have to wait to do some of the landscaping until the fall. But in any case, and then Noon Rotary also has provided some financial support for this. So we'll need some volunteers, and I'll send out a request for that through Scott that can go out to all the members. I think we're scheduled from about 10 to 1, if I remember correctly. And so pretty much things will be ready to go. There'll be jobs for every level of skill that's out there. We'll have some, we'll call it finish work, but it's really painting a wood preservative on. So all you got to do is be able to hold a paintbrush and dip it into a bucket. We'll have some holes to be dug, some raking and cleanup to be done, some assembly of the graffiti walls and the picnic benches. Here's the design. Let me see, hold this up, see if it'll work. Let me flip to my camera.
And Norma, while you do that, I also wanted to share. So this is going to be a little sign that just welcomes people to the graffiti garden. And we found this little quote. So art is a beautiful way to discover more of who you are. So we thought with the Rediscovery program that would be a nice little welcoming and also a sponsor sign. So OPCC, if you guys like this, we can get this printed up and ready for your graffiti garden.
Okay, and let's see. I don't know if you can see this well enough. Yeah, there you go. That's what the picnic bench is going to look like, except with some raw lumber. Anyway, it should be a fun project. Again, all levels of skills can be utilized. Particularly, would be nice to have some that know how to use a impact driver and a level and maybe dig some holes for the posts. But it's pretty simple design. Again, I've got the materials, so we just need to show up and do the work.
Awesome. Norm, thank you so much for taking the time to make those beautiful planks. And you've been great. You've been running around picking up materials, and thank you so much for all your help and coordinating.
So I'm really excited about this service project. I think it's fantastic. Carmen, hats off to you. You've done an incredible job putting it all together and planning it. And Norm, appreciate all your support as always. Scott, Bill, and Amy, thank you so much for being with us this morning. You are doing incredible work down there, and I'm actually honored that we're partnering up with you for our first quarterly community service project. So